Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another one of our Better Investing online tools tutorials. Tonight we are going to take a look at portfolio reports available in CoreSSG and SSGPlus. Susie Artsberger is our presenter this evening, and she is the Director of Information Technology at Better Investing. She is also our product manager in charge of our online tools. We could not ask for a better tour guide. My name is Ann Cunias, by the way, and I will be monitoring questions, helping her out by asking your questions to her during the course of this presentation. So Susie, why don't we get started?
All right. Thank you, Ann, for the kind introduction. Thank you to all of our attendees out there. Looks like we're going to be a couple hundred people strong. And thank you especially to our backroom staff who will help answer your question and help make these webinars run smoothly. Let's begin. Tonight's webinar, we're going to end up talking about our portfolio functions in both CoreSSG and SSGPlus. As we go through, I'll point out where there are differences between those two tools, and there's not much difference, let me just say that. We'll talk about the basic portfolio functions and our new portfolio reports. So they're only a couple of months old, and at the end of the webinar I'll tell you about another one that's coming up very shortly. We're very excited about being able to build more functionality into these tools, and we have some of these things like portfolio reports that we're doing, as well as in the background we have our main coder doing a whole lot of different feature development. So that's one of the exciting parts of my job. So thanks for hanging in there with us. We should be about an hour tonight. Let's start learning about portfolios. If you have trouble during the webinar or you want to review some of the content, the recording will be available, we say, within 2 to 4 days, but it's usually a little bit sooner, and it will be on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/betterinvesting. So we'll send you a little reminder of that so you know where to get that. There's also links available from our websites in case you forget that. We will be talking about some stocks tonight. So please don't go out and go buy them based on the fake numbers I've put into my demonstration companies. Always do your own research. And in case we end up talking about websites that are not Better Investing websites, know that we're not strictly endorsing anything there. And once again, this session is being recorded for future use. The format of our webinar tonight is actually going to follow along one of our main portfolio documents called the Quick Start Guide. So it's a 7-step lesson to the basic portfolio functionality. It is available as a handout on the event page. You may have seen it there. It's also available in the Help and Information tab. When we get into the tool, that will be the last option on the left, and I will show you that live when we get there. So it is a 4-page document that tells you all of the basics of what to do in a portfolio, how to create or add a portfolio, how to delete a portfolio, how to add a study or a stock selection guide to a portfolio, how to add shares so that you can figure out what % your investment is taking up out of the total portfolio. Once you already have a portfolio set up, then you can select it and edit your shares should they change. You can delete a study from the portfolio should you choose to sell that company, for example. And then we'll show you how to run some portfolio reports, as well as some of those report options once you are running reports. So one caution here is that this is not a lesson in portfolio management per se, meaning what are the best buy and sell decisions based on what's in my portfolio. We did build a supporting document to help. There's a companion document called Using the Portfolio Summary Report, which gets into some of that. There are also many, many classes at the chapter level at our national convention. The Better Investing National Convention is going to be May in San Jose this year, so please check that out if you want to get more in depth into portfolio management. Tonight is a tutorial on the tool, on how to get A, B, and C done and be able to run your reports and make a PDF and things like that. This is a screenshot of our Help and Information tab, and you can see the little orange box there, and that is the 5th tab. On the left, the bottom one, is the Help and Information tab. It has a little I and a blue circle. And what we have here are a number of quick start guides, and these are our new portfolio resources. So here's where you can find a link to the portfolio quick start guide, as well as, I've blown it up a little here, our portfolio summary report document. And I also want to point out, there's a new section here, there's a new member benefit for all of you who are members. If you are a basic or core member, you have access to our intro series. If you are a plus member, you have an additional set of classes called our Adding Judgment series, plus a few selected extra ones. We're going to go live and I'll show that to you, but that is in the My Classes area, so you don't have to pay for those. They come as part of your membership. You don't even have to sign up. They're automatically in your My Classes area. Before we go live, let me show you a little bit about how the main way I'm going to get to our portfolio functionality, and that green box in the upper right hand corner of the Better Investing website, I've drawn a big orange line around that. We'll blow that up a little bit. And in the past, when we were talking about stock selection guides, I might have gone up here to the top box, but right now we're mainly concerned with studies we have already created. And you may hear me use the word studies a lot, because that's what the stock selection guide is. It's a study of a company. I could have called it my guides. Just know that those words, my studies, are the same as me saying my saved stock selection guides. And we'll be clicking on that blue button to get started. So let's begin our live demo. And then we're going to be here for a little bit, and then we'll come back to our PowerPoint at the end of our presentation. So let me bring you over to our member homepage. Here we are. There's that green box in the corner, and I am going to click on the My Studies in a second. But before I do, I want to show you in the education area where that My Classes link is. So if you click on that, you'll see My Classes come up. Here are all of the intro series classes, 5 of them. And
Susie, excuse
yes.
me. I'm getting reports that we're not seeing your live screen. We're still on the PowerPoint. Did sharing somehow stop, perhaps, or?
It did not, but
audience view.
I will tell you that I am in Chrome, so I can switch over. I'll tell you what, we have had reports of Chrome being an issue here, so I'll tell you what, I will just switch my browser, and as I'm doing that, why don't you tell people how easy it is to use this in different browsers?
Well, it actually is. As Susie's just saying, she's having trouble in Chrome, but if you've got an internet access and any device and any internet access in any browser, you can use the online tools. So personally, I keep Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Firefox all installed on my desktop here, on my laptop PC, and look at it that way. I've got it installed on my tablet. Heck, Susie and I have even done it in our little tiny browsers on our phone when driving back from the National Convention last year. Maybe it's not the best view, but it's very, very possible. Just any browser whatsoever.
Right. A lot of different devices, as you mentioned.
A lot of different devices, yep. Mac users, PC users, tablets. I'm still riffing here because I'm still not seeing you.
Well, I have paused my screen, so here I am. I'm just logging in. Let me unpause my screen, and you'll see me waiting to log in. I'm using Internet Explorer now, so let's see if the audience view changes. Look at that.
Yep. We're all good now.
All right, sorry about that. I have used many different browsers
Yeah, you haven't seen that problem, but I
and
actually have, not being
right.
able to share when using Chrome.
Okay,
So,
so I'm going to click on my study. Actually, I was here talking to people about the Education tab, and we're going to click on My Classes and see the classes that come up, and we'll see that here's the Intro to the SSG series, and down at the next section, I am a Plus member, so I also have access to the Adding Judgment series, and we'll just leave it there. But our basic core and plus members all have access to the intro series, so please check that out. Now I'm going to click on the top logo here and go back to the home page, and we will begin by clicking on our My Studies blue link right there, and that'll move me over into our tool. Okay, so you're all still seeing my screen okay, right?
yes, ma'am. We're
All
seeing
right.
it now.
So let's give this a whirl and all the things that we can do here. The general layout of this screen, and this is working in where there are a bunch of books called the My Studies area. That's the library of studies, if you will. And there are two big bars. The one that says Portfolios, I'm going to click on that. And I have a couple of portfolios set up. So the top part of the screen is about portfolios. The bottom part of the screen is about my stock selection guides, or my studies that I have already completed or saved. So whenever I come back in, they're there. They are saved. They don't have to be completed, meaning they don't have to have all of the judgments made. So I see a label here that these are the studies for all of them, all studies. I have 21. I can choose to see 10, 20, 50, or 100 at a time. That's not terribly relevant to our conversation tonight, but I can choose that option. So what I'm going to do here is kind of show you around a couple of our dummy portfolios. One is the first time you come into this, you're going to see all studies. I can also see the ones I haven't classified yet. So a portfolio in our world is kind of a wrapper or a folder. You can have the same stock selection guide in actually multiple portfolios. But if I wanted to see all of my studies that were not classified, I could click on this All Studies Not in a Portfolio and scroll down and see them. And I have 12 that are not in a portfolio. I have 21 total, if you'll recall. And I have 9 that I've already classified in a previous webinar. So all of those numbers add up. So just to get you kind of acclimated with our screen here. One of our first tasks that we're going to want to do is create another portfolio. We also call that adding a portfolio. So I'm going to click on the New Portfolio button up here. I'm going to give it a name. That's required. We'll just call it the January Webinar Portfolio. For my demo club, any kind of description that I want that is going to help me out. And I'll tell you what, these are actually Ticker Talk stocks from the past, I only took 6 of them, but from the past 2 months. So these were mentioned in Ticker Talks. So I've successfully created my portfolio. You'll see it show up here in my list. So now I have 4. At this point, I do not have any studies in my portfolio, so they have to be assigned yet, if you can see that. Now, let's say I have a portfolio I no longer want. So I have this existing club portfolio that's a little bit old. If I don't want it, there's a trash can. So we have 3 icons here that deal with portfolios. Edit, we'll get to that in a little bit. Trash can, meaning delete the portfolio. and run reports. We'll obviously get to that at the end. So if I clicked on delete portfolio, there's a nice warning here that says, you know what, you're just deleting the wrapper. Any studies belonging to the portfolio will not be deleted. That's all you need to do. And so that is not going to change my 21 studies down at the bottom. It's just going to take this out of the list. So let me do that. And I'm going to see, and that's going to redisplay, and I will have my one portfolio here with nothing in it, and my old club portfolio has been deleted. But guess what? I still have 21 companies. So it's just a wrapper and a way of categorizing things and organizing things for you. Okay, now how do we get that January webinar portfolio populated with my stock selection guides? The key to that is this pencil icon called Edit Portfolio. So I'm going to click on that, and what it's going to bring up, it's going to let me do a few things here. It's going to, if I want to rename the portfolio, this is the place I can do it. If I want to change some of these descriptor fields like the account name or description, I can do that here. But the main thing I'm going to do with it is I am going to add existing studies. They don't have to be completed, but they have to already have been saved and available to me in the bottom section here. So I've already created those, and what I'm going to do is add Fastenal, and I already know that this is one stock I want to add, and I see this come up. I'm going to click on it, Demo. I'm going to put how many shares my pretend club owns, and that's 86 shares, and then this is pretty important. I'm going to add click on this checkbox to add a study. I'm going to go do my next one, which is Waddell and Reed. So that was another one mentioned in Ticker Talk. And let's pretend my club bought 28 shares of that, and I'm going to click on the X. So we'll just do this for a few more. Precision Cast Parts, I see that demo stock coming up, and 10 shares of that. Let's see, what else do we have? Discovery Communications, and you can see I just start typing the ticker, and I don't have to even put the whole ticker in there. It just starts coming up. So 24 shares of that. And Akamai, pick that one. 27 shares of that. Apparently our demo club doesn't buy anything in round numbers except for eGov, which 30 shares. Okay, so I have 6 SSGs or companies in my portfolio. It could be my club portfolio, could be my personal portfolio. I click on Save, and now we see, you can watch me mouse at the top of the screen, and the row is highlighted in yellow, and let me go up a little bit here. My study count is 6. So that's how I know all of that's been successful. The other way is I'm going to click on this and open that portfolio, and what that means is it's only going to show me, this is how the categorization works, so it simplifies my display. Now this is a practice portfolio or a practice account for me. In my real account I'm working on 300 studies, and yes, I could probably prune some of those out, but I also have a way of categorizing them, so the clubs I'm in, I can see only those certain ones by using this organizational method.
Hey Susie, there's a great question. I don't know, yeah. I know you're in a sample sample account here. Do you have anything where you have multiple studies? Because Wayne's asking, if you do have multiple studies, do you get a choice of which of those studies to select for your portfolio?
That is a great question, and I'll tell you what, you will get a choice. I'm not sure that I actually do have multiple studies going on here. Let me
Yeah,
see.
but
Oh,
I
25.
can tell you, Wayne, that's true. I have
It's true.
11
You'll see.
cognizant studies
Yes.
in my library, and it will list every single one, and I can pick out exactly which one I want to put in the portfolio. So,
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's pick one of these old ones.
yeah,
And
create another one, an up-to-date one or something.
yeah, I'll tell you what. We're going to pick the BlackRock. And I'm actually going to update it by clicking on this icon here. So let me kind of walk through what's on the bottom here. When we are looking at all of our companies, or a few of them if they're in a portfolio, we have 4 actions that we can take. Actually 5, and I'll tell you what those are. The first one, and it looks like a couple of arrows chasing each other, that is the icon for updating study. If you watch me mouse over, you might see the little update study tooltip. The second icon looks like a pencil, and it's for editing the study, and that's one way of opening it. No, I'm sorry. It's going to bring up this box here. The third icon is the delete study icon. So if I wanted to get rid of this SSG out of my account, totally delete it, that's what I would use. And the last icon here is for previewing data. So what does preview data do for us? It shows us sales, earnings, and price bars for our company. Maybe we've forgotten what that looks like. Later on, as we talk about when we get our new updates in place later this year, you might be shared a study from somebody else and you don't really know too much about it. You look at the preview data and you'll get a quick preview of the visual analysis part. So that's what that can do for you. So the first icon I mentioned was update study. So let me click on that. And what I want to do is, in this case, I want to create a copy. And here's a warning. When I make that copy, it will not be part of your portfolio because it's all new. The software doesn't know how to automatically assign it at this point. So I'm just going to create another one. And it's going to have updated fundamental data. My judgments will not be changed. My notes will be copied over. But for the purposes of answering the question we got just now, I now have 2 BlackRock studies, stock selection guides, in my entire list. If I go back to my portfolio, the January webinar portfolio, and I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to add BlackRock. So what happens? Well, now I see both. And I can pick the later one. And this is the create date, so I can pick the later one or the earlier one. I'm going to actually pick the earlier one because I want to prove a point when I look at portfolio reports. So you don't have to enter any shares. Many people set up watch lists with no shares. They haven't bought anything, but they want to see their judgments stacked up together. I'm going to enter a few shares of BlackRock. One of the things that I also want to show you is that if you're in the middle of adding studies or SSGs to your portfolio and you look at this list and you actually didn't want BlackRock, you can click on the X right here to remove it. I could add BlackRock and place here, add it back in. So that's a couple of different ways you can edit the studies in your portfolio. So now I have 7 of them. And let's click on this again. So we're only bringing up the January webinar stocks. And we see that there's 7 of them here. I can look at the date that they were created, the date that they were modified, the sector they're in, the industry they're in, the size of the company, and whether it's completed or not. So completed means you have completed all of the judgments necessary to produce a stock selection guide with the total return, an upside-downside ratio, and so forth. If I'm I just kind of want to back up right here, and if these terms are not familiar to you, judgments, risk and reward, upside, downside, projections, if those words are unfamiliar to you, I would recommend that you review our Intro to SSG series. So we're kind of assuming you know something about a stock selection guide in this class. And like I said, this is recorded, so you can always come back to it. Okay, so we do see a few things about our portfolio. One of the things that we use a portfolio for is to do reports. And sometimes, many of our members are in an investment club, and once a month we're going to recommend that you do at least a quick review of the club, of the stocks that your club is holding. Portfolio report is a great way to do that. The document that I was showing you before called Using the Portfolio Summary Report, and I'll show you again at the end of the webinar where to get that, but it's at this Help and Information tab, gives some great ideas about the process you should go through. One of the first things is you want to deal with updated data. That's why I was demonstrating how to update your companies. So one of the ways here is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to delete this out of my portfolio because I actually picked the wrong BlackRock. So I'm going to click on the trash can and delete that newest BlackRock study. And what it's telling me, I'm just going to remove it from my portfolio. I'm not going to delete it permanently, just out of my portfolio, because I said I was going to make a point with BlackRock, and then I promptly went ahead and picked the wrong one. So I'm going to pick the older BlackRock, the August one, and show you how those dates change down below. When we have that older BlackRock company there. So what we're going to see, I picked the August BlackRock study that I had, and watch the yellow highlighting down at the bottom of your screen. You'll see that the date modified is August. So when I say, one of the things we typically want to do, and I've sorted the column here, so it's now popped up to the top. I said one of the things we want to do is deal with updated data. And there's the update button, and I'll show you what happens when we do that. So, these are the basics. You're going to put things in a folder or a portfolio, if you will. You've got some ways of adding them, some ways of deleting them. Let's run a little sample report. And to do that, I'm going to go up to the top section, which deals with portfolios, click on the report icon, and I have two options, Summary and PERT Report, and it's going to come up in the Summary Report by default. So the first thing I want you to notice is that the price date is in red for BlackRock. And it's there for a reason, because it's important that when you're looking at portfolio reports, that you're looking at updated data, even if it's just the price data. In this case, that price date is from last August, so I want to update that. And the red is saying you have price data that's older than 7 days old. So it's just a reminder for you. And what we're going to do, I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to go back to BlackRock. I'm going to click on that Update Study button, and I'm going to overwrite the company data. And the reason is I don't want to re-add a new BlackRock study to my portfolio. I am just going to keep overwriting the companies that are already assigned to that portfolio. Why do I do that? So I don't have to go through that extra step. Many people actually save a by SSG, the original SSG, and then maintain a company or a study that is their one that will be updated on an ongoing basis. So that's typically how we work it in our club. And before I go any farther into reports, Ann, I know last time we did a webinar we had a lot of questions here. Are there any questions right now about updating studies?
Not at this time. They're all thinking about what you just told them
Okay.
and just taught them. So if there are questions while we're here, I'll be sure to get those in. But right now,
Okay.
everybody's with you. Thank
Awesome. All right. So let's go back to the couple of reports that we can run here. I mentioned the portfolio summary report. We also have a PERT report. I'll talk about that in a few minutes and tell you about a third report that's coming online shortly. The portfolio summary report, I'll call it a basic report, but there's lots of good information here. It gives a nice overview of your portfolio, the ticker, the company name, in case somebody's a little confused about what these tickers are, the price date, which is important, the price as of that price date, what the holding size as a percentage of your portfolio. So you might see if we sorted by this, and anytime you see a little triangle icon or the double triangle icon, you know, one up, one down, that means you can sort that column. So we see that eGov in my fictional demo portfolio is relatively small. And we have Fastenal, because of the random number that I chose to put in for number of shares, is actually a relatively large holding. And that's where you might ask, what is the optimal percentage, max and min? And that's where this class is not going to delve too deeply into the guidelines or anything like that. That's why there are other classes for this. Suffice it to say that you should be thinking about these kinds of things in your club. The Better Investing magazine, our conventions, our chapters, there's all kinds of reference material on portfolio holdings. Every one of these columns is sortable. You also have, buy below and sell above prices. And here's an interesting thing, all except for BlackRock. What do these double dashes mean? Well, if you'll recall, BlackRock was one of those companies that was not completed. Let's put those kind of in quote marks. It did not have all of the judgments made. So because it didn't, we can't develop a total return for that company. We can't develop an upside downside. We can't develop that price zone. And therefore we can't display what your study's recommendation is. So recommendation, or REC here, let's double check and make sure you understand that this is not a Better Investing recommendation. This is the recommendation as developed by your stock selection guide. So how is this useful? Well, in our club, we might sort by total return and see which ones we might want to shop within our own portfolio. Go back to the stock watcher and say, hey, do you think it's worth buying more of this particular company at this price?
Well, Susie, as predicted, yes, a couple questions came in while they were thinking, you see.
Okay.
So about those updates, we have a question about updating a study, and how is it updated if I do not include my current judgments? Maybe you can just talk a little bit about the update process again.
So if there's no judgments in
Well, I think she might be referring to the fact that she needs to review and update her judgments. That's how I'm reading the question from Shar.
Right. So once a study is established, at any point it can be updated. And what updating means is we will put in the most available, most recent price date. And I did kind of see a question float across about how if these are recently updated, how come they don't have today's prices in them? Because the market's closed. We actually don't get our data on prices until tomorrow morning. So by 7 a.m. tomorrow, you'll have price data for today, which is the 26th. So this is as of last Friday, which was the last trading day. And so the price and price data are updated. Any changes, any company with new fundamental data, all of the fundamental data is overwritten. So whether or not your forecasts are there and established or blank, they are left untouched. So what we recommend in the using the portfolio summary report kind of goes through this a little bit. We recommend making sure your study is updated with the most current data. And if you need to go back and double check your forecasts, or if there's been a new quarter of data, check how that's going. Do it after you update, not before.
Right.
And
hopefully that answered Char's question, and
I hope so.
If not, she'll probably come back at us.
Okay.
This is just a basic question. When you were adding shares, Robert observed you didn't add any with fractional shares. Is it possible to add fractional shares when you're creating your portfolio?
Absolutely. We have, I think we can go up to 6 digits on fractional shares.
Oh,
so.
dear.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I know
as well as I do,
those,
sometimes
yeah.
you get into a situation with some weird fractional shares, and
right. That's more
so
for the club accounting people versus what we're
I know,
doing
but
here,
to
I think.
alleviate some of those situations where you want things to be matchy-match, we allow many digits, yes.
Yeah, okay. Paul's asking a frequently asked question, and I thought maybe I'd give you the opportunity to just answer it right out loud at this point. Can studies all be updated at once in a summary screen?
Oh, that is a great question, and the answer is not yet, but part of our update's coming. So at this point, what we'll have to do is update them individually here, but one of our exciting new functions is the ability to update all studies at once.
Yay!
So stay tuned.
Paul, you and I
wanted
both
as
can't
much
wait for that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming. I know it is. All right. Back to this report. Carol's asking about the percent of the portfolio. Is that based on the dollar amount of the shares or the number of shares?
That is based on the dollar amount of the shares. So if you take not the price per share, but the price times the number of shares gives you a market value for that holding. And this is the percentage of the market value, if you will.
Okay. And Lloyd's asking a question. I'm not even sure of the answer, so let's ask it, Lloyd.
Put me on the spot? Okay.
It's called Stump the Presenter, but we can't stump you, Susie, because you know everything. When you update an SSG that has split their stock, now I know that all of the earnings and the price data is all updated to reflect the split, but does it reflect the split in the number of shares that might be in your portfolio?
Not as of yet.
Not
You'll
as of
have
yet.
to go back and match that to your broker report, if you will.
So if there's a split, it's kind of a two-step process then.
It is.
Then update your number of shares as well.
Right. And the reason there is that the data that we receive from the data provider is already split adjusted, so there's essentially no extra step that we need to be aware of and have to take action upon. Your number of shares in your portfolio is the extra step, so certainly it's something that we can consider for future improvement, but I think you'd want to be warned too, so we'll work on that.
Okay.
And make a note.
I'm making mental notes all along. You know, that's good for nothing.
And make a written note.
It's recorded. It's here in history.
Yes. Okay. Any more
Okay.
questions?
So I think we're mostly caught up at this point. So why don't you get back on? And
I would like the audience to note how little you follow my direction, though.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Me? I always do everything you ask, Susie.
Okay.
I want the audience to know
that is recorded.
Okay, let's move on.
All right, moving on. Okay, so we're looking at my notes here. You may have noticed the large PDF symbol. Each of these reports, we can generate a PDF. I'm going to open that up and show you what that looks like. Oh, look, it opened up on my other screen. I have two screens here. And this is simply a file now. I can save it. I can send it to the rest of my club. So all of our reports have that option here. And let's see, let's move on to the PERT report. So those of you who may be familiar with Toolkit, which is a desktop tool rather than an online tool, may be familiar with the PERT report. And the PERT stands for Portfolio Evaluation and Review Technique. Now, this report is covered in many of our books and classroom sessions, so we're not going to get into it extensively tonight. I just want you guys to know that it's available. If you are a Toolkit user, you will see the exact same numbers. We made, when we launched this PERT report here, we actually double-checked. There was actually a few changes made to Toolkit to bring everything in line, and so you will see the exact same numbers there. So a PERT report gives is a little bit more in-depth report. It's a little busier, and in a lot of these columns it's comparing a year ago, or September 2013, with results from September 2014, and giving us a format in which to compare those. So what you'll see are some of these pink highlighting, and what that is telling us is that the year-over-year results are not matching our expectations, for example, for our earnings growth that we have picked, trailing 12 months. So the pink is where that company has not matched our expectations, and we may want to take another look at the company's latest report, or take another look at the company itself. We'll see a little bit of yellow. Well, when I highlight a row, you'll see yellow. So I'm going to sneak up on that 72.1. So there are some rows that are highlighted, or some columns or cells that are highlighted in yellow. And the yellow highlighting is another way of indicating, hey, there might be something here we need to take a look at. There's yellow highlighting in a couple of areas. Total return, that's one of our columns, and I can sort by that column. That may have yellow highlighting if the total return is less than 10. Upside-downside ratio, or UD ratio, may have yellow highlighting if that upside-downside ratio is less than 1. Projected relative value, which may not be a term that you're used to hearing because we don't teach about it a lot, and I'm not going to get into it here, is highlighted if the value is less than 80 or greater than 150. So each one of these columns is highlighted, is sortable. You'll see, remember BlackRock? See, here's the company name here. Because same rules apply, because we don't have the information to produce these numbers from a completed SSG, we see dashes. We can't make estimates if we don't have projections in there. So the PERT report also has a PDF available with it. And one of the exciting things here is that we have a lot of room to grow different reports. And we're also working a lot with how these reports display. So we know the PERT report's a little bit ungainly now, and we are working with how to make that an easier display on everyone. We don't want to make it so busy that it's hard to read, but it takes a little scrolling now, so we understand that might be there might be a better way to do that. And that is kind of the theme in what my department does. We kind of look for user feedback. We look at our user requests, and we try and implement them as much as we can and our resources are able. You may have noticed in this report, just like the other one, when I click on a row, or just even mouse over a row, it becomes highlighted in yellow. Excuse me, all of these reports have the same feature where if I then click on it, it will take me to the underlying stock selection guide. And you may have seen our Frosty the Snowman rotating around, so I hope our northeastern friends here aren't too offended by that, but this is that underlying BlackRock study. And remember, it didn't have all of its judgments. In fact, I don't see any of its judgments. But that's how we went to that underlying study. If I wanted to go back to my portfolio, I'm going to click on this library of books, which is my library of studies or stock selection guides. And here I am. And we've already covered how to delete from a portfolio, but I'll just cover that again. Let's say we didn't like BlackRock at all. Once again, first what I want to do is click on.
Before you go to that, we do have a question from the audience. I didn't hear if you said it, so I apologize. But are all of these reports available in both Core and Plus?
Oh, that's a great question. Right now, Core users can try out PERT, but eventually when we start adding more, only the summary report is going to be available in Core. And PERT and the follow-on reports are going to be available in Plus. But right now,
okay. So by design, the Core will get the summary report. Correct. Always, and then the PERT will be for the Plus users.
Yes, that's a good point.
Okay, excellent.
All right.
A whole bunch of questions just came in, so you continue. I've got to read through these.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go over again on how to delete. Remember, we're kind of following our Quick Start guide, so how to delete a study from a portfolio. I'm going to, once again, click on the trash can icon and remove it from my portfolio. I'm not going to delete it permanently. Okay. And we've talked about how to run the portfolio report and some of those report options. I want to point out, I mentioned, we're kind of following along on our Quick Start guide. Your key for help and information is this last tab here. So the Portfolio Quick Start guide is what I mentioned in the beginning. It looks like this. It's a 4-page document that goes over how to add, how to delete a portfolio, how to add to it and add shares, and how to select and edit your number of shares, how to delete a study from your portfolio, how to run a report, and some of those report options. Remember I talked about pink on the PERT and highlighting in yellow. Those rules are listed here also, so you don't have to guess on those again. And if I click back to my stock selection guide tool, we'll also see the document that I mentioned using the portfolio summary report. And it gives you some step-by-step guidelines or step-by-step actions, if you will, to getting it done, opening up your portfolio summary report, what to look for, making sure that you're updating your studies and so forth. So please check that one out. I think it's 7 pages total. So Ann, what else can we help answer?
Well, there is a question here about the Refresh Portfolio tab up at the top. People are wondering, what is that for?
Well, you know what? I don't use it very often, but I don't know.
I don't even know the answer.
Uh-oh. Well, the answer was when I added BlackRock to my portfolio, I actually refreshed my page, but I could have hit just refresh portfolio so that BlackRock appeared in the list. So it's just a way of refreshing your list down here after you've made some changes.
Okay, and Shar is asking, and I know this isn't a portfolio management class, but it's a short answer, I think. All the highlighting that was on the PERT, the yellow and the pink, would these be considered both positive and negative changes, or positive and negative things to look out for, or are they only negative?
Well, I would say that, you know, we have a couple of different things. We have red price date text, we have pink highlighting, and we have yellow highlighting. And honestly, those are cautionary highlighting. So
they're all kind of bad.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say bad, but
well, they're negative, right?
They're cautionary. You need to look. They're not as expected.
Yes.
No, don't lead with bad.
Not as good as good. Less than good. All right, moving on. And Ken is saying, maybe he missed this, but is the return included in these reports? Yes. The total return from your stock selection guide.
Let me open it up again. And by necessity because of page space. Sometimes we've abbreviated that, but total return is here on the summary report, and it's also, I think, the second or third column from the end on the PERT report. So I'm going to mouse over, scroll over, and see here's the total return.
Right, and I'm just going to emphasize that, again, that's based on the judgments that you have saved in this stock selection guide.
Right.
So it's not the answer, it's an answer, it's your answer.
Correct. It's a potential, not a given. Right.
People are looking for some other reports. They're looking for some diversification by size.
Well, why don't you tell them about diversification by sector and industry?
Well, I thought that was your job tonight.
All right, I'm leading in on because we are working on the diversification by sector and industry. I just saw a sample of it today, so literally within 2 weeks we will have one more report here called diversification that will give you sector and industry, and then we'll set the gentleman to work on the diversification by size. So those are coming fairly quickly, and then before our next portfolio webinar we'll have all of those other cool changes in our tools coming as well. Is it time to show off a little bit of that?
Oh, do you have it? Yeah, I think it would be great.
Do you have any more portfolio questions?
Yeah, you know, I want to answer either, or you should, somebody should, because she's asking a really basic question.
Okay.
She says, when you update a stock's fundamentals, how do you know if you need to look at your judgments? Can I answer?
Yes, that is an answer for you.
Jean, you always look at your judgments after there's been a quarterly update. You must. It doesn't have to be in great detail, but you want to make sure that you're still hitting your expectations. You know, read the press release, make sure everything is still going well, and check your valuation. So always check those judgments.
Yes, but you would also be the first to say that
don't necessarily change them every quarter. Right.
You don't keep chasing every quarter.
But I do think, and the reason I said it that way is I think your SSG needs to be opened up and considered and looked at on every quarterly update.
I totally agree.
Yeah. You just don't put it on automatic pilot is what I'm saying.
Right. Always open it up. Okay.
And I was wondering how this was coming across. Anne says that we're making her smile talking back and forth at each other tonight. So I hope that's the general consensus. Kind of a little free flow tonight. So there's so many, all of a sudden, so many questions just keep popping up.
I have a little time here. I only have about 5 minutes to wrap up, so let's take a few more.
Oh, is the total return based on 12 months? Nancy wants to know.
Well, total return, the way that's calculated, let's bring it back up here. In your stock selection guide, that is the number that is presented is an annualized return. So when you say, is it 12 months, kind of, this is, in our methodology, we project a potential high price 5 years out, and then we annualize it. So it's not 13%. If you look at Akamai in our example here, it's not 13.6% from now till 5 years out. No, that's an annualized total return. So I hope that.
Right. And over 5 years, we're making 5-year projections on the stock selection guide.
Right.
So we annualize it looking at that price that we've come up with 5 years in the future. So that's probably, you know, another class. But Robert is asking a great question, and one that I think comes up a lot. He wants to know, are there any numbers on these reports that are in any way attached to the buy price, which I think he's looking for a different kind of functionality if he's looking at like how his portfolio has done, right? The performance of the portfolio.
Like a potential buy price or an actual buy price?
I think he's looking at the actual buy price, so that would be the difference between this and like a club accounting.
Right, that is a great question, and when we talk about a portfolio management tool, there is a type of tool that is more aligned with an accounting tool or a transactional accounting tool where you track cost basis and your buy price and leads more into accounting and tax reports, if you will. That is not what we're looking at here. So there is not a place to put your buy price in this, you know, your actual buy price and the number of lots and so forth. We're kind of using this as a forward-looking, how is my portfolio doing based on the judgments I have? What is the potential total return in the future? And based on the guide that I already have, is it potentially a buy, hold, or sell? Would you add anything to that, Ann?
I would not. And the other use of this is going to become clear in the next couple weeks when we reveal the sector diversification report. As well, because it's going to help you know where you might be lacking in some sectors or some industries type thing.
Right. And I'm sure you'll come up with some education. That's
will.
part of it. To help.
Ticker Talk will be one of the first segments that when you roll those out. We always talk about that.
By the way, yeah, and that's actually a good point. To get a little dose of, if you're of tools updates, we always try and work something in every other month or so. That's about what it ends up, right? Every other month or so onto some feature of the tool. So it's a little different format than one of these webinars, but there's also a little bit more education built around those, meaning the guidelines and thought processes behind them.
Right.
Anything else?
At this point, I think we're pretty caught up. I think most of these can be handled in the background. So why don't you dazzle us with some of those new things? Are you were you planning to do that? I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
I was preparing here, and I'm going to drag that over.
Awesome.
But while I'm getting this set up, and while you guys it's loading on your screen, let me say if we didn't answer your question, or you come up with one real late, and meaning in the next 5 minutes or so, and we don't get to it, we look at these. I'll get back with you and try and answer your question after the fact. Okay, so I mentioned some new updates to our tools, and let me show you. This is the SSGPlus, and it doesn't look too different. You might see that a few things are going to be turned around here. Peer data is going to be easier to get at. So this is not where a ton of our effort went into, because we just rolled this tool out a year ago. Easier way of switching between Core and Plus, but we are making bigger improvements. Well, let me see. In the file, we have ways to copy, quick nav. There's going to be a share link here. When we talk about annual data, you'll be able to add future years. So as you can see, we're kind of smack in the testing phase. Sharing studies, we're going to have a lot more options. Different data files, being able to send somebody a study online without going through the export, email, import process. You're going to have options for importing from Toolkit, not directly, but the ITK file. So those are some of the exciting things that are going on there. Comparison guide gets an update. So this is what the comparison guide looks like. You can pick some of your saved comparisons. You can add from your list of studies. You can start by typing in a new ticker, for example, or pick one of your saved studies. We have 6 columns now instead of 5, and the addition of industry averages comes into play. So you can see maybe that HP, Helmerich & Payne, is in the oil and gas drilling industry, and I can pick and choose the oil and gas drilling industry over here and see what the industry average is, so you can compare your HP with the oil and gas industry. So those are,
they're all gasping right now.
Are they?
They're all going like, oh, we can't believe it, Susie. That's so wonderful.
Wow.
I know they are. I can hear it.
People.
I can hear it. Yeah.
All right.
It is awesome.
I was trying to bring up the CoreSSG, and I don't think, well, let me see if I can just switch. Maybe it'll switch for me. CoreSSG, look at that. Looks a lot like the SSG Plus, and that's by design. It's wider, and it's going to make an easier transition from those who are using Core into the SSG Plus tool. So the graph stays in pretty much the same area. We have a next button, so you just click next to go through all of your different screens. There's still the same number of clicks because there's still a point to teaching people about what all of these different areas mean. And it's also, if you're doing your SSG Plus and you want to remember the education, it's a nice little place of refresher. And one thing, I don't know if you noticed, I have this Texas Roadhouse study. It doesn't matter what view I'm in, so I'm going to call it like that. So here's like an SSG Plus. It's a tool, but it's also the different view of the same study. So I can go back and forth much easier. And
I just want to say that Plus users always still have Core. Sometimes they don't even realize that. But if you are a Plus subscriber, you always have access to the Core SSG as well.
One of the, so when we made the Core SSG, you may or may not know, I mean, that didn't look like the form. Some people didn't like that. Some people actually really did. And I'll tell you, we have an enormous number of users who are on the Core SSG and use that exclusively. And the interesting thing was that when we rolled out SSG Plus and people started being intrigued by those features, we were actually surprised by how many people wanted to go back to Core. And so we were making it easier to go back, primarily for the education. So that gets a little bit easier. So we're excited about a lot of these different areas that we're improving. And in the background, we're setting ourselves up for the ability to support the tool for many years to come with new ways of storing data and so forth. So hopefully you guys are gasping, as Ann said, and in awe, and you know. Mainly we're just happy you came here tonight. So
James, was I interrupting you? I don't
No, go ahead. You have another question?
Well, there is a good question, and I don't know if I'm going to leave you with this, but it's one of the great, maybe possibly last questions. He wants to see once again where he can review those tutorials because he sees the value in this and he wants to get back to maybe doing an SSG Plus tutorial or a Core tutorial.
Okay. A couple of ways. So if you already have access to a tool, you can go to the Help and Information tab, and all of the most recent versions of our tutorial webinars are linked here. If you are on the member website, as I am right now, go to Tools and Resources and Webinar Recordings. Or you can go to youtube.com/betterinvesting, and we have a whole YouTube channel there. youtube.com/betterinvesting, and most of our free webinars, if not all of them, are posted here as well. So you'll see all of our stock analysis tools as well as some of the other webinars that we have. Did that answer that?
I think it did. I hope it did.
Okay. Let me go back to our PowerPoint and we'll wrap up. I mentioned that there was a place where we could, or you could, submit user feature requests. So that URL is feedback.betterinvesting.org, or you can go again to that Help and Information link, and there is a Help and Information tab, and there is a link from there. Many of the questions that you may have regarding the tools can be answered at our Frequently Asked Questions site or FAQ site, and that is faq.betterinvesting.org, and pick Online Stock Tools and simply peruse, or you can search for a phrase up here at the top. Again, that link is also in our Help and Information tab. We are skipping February as a month in which we will do a tutorial because we hope to be heads down testing, releasing, working on features, and getting ready for our national convention and all kinds of good stuff. So our next webinar is the end of March, 2 months from now, March 26th, and that will be a CoreSSG tutorial. Watch your email. I believe most of you got the email, registered via email, but you can always go to betterinvesting.org/webinars and sign up to anything that we have. Any further questions, our member service staff can always help you. We have a toll-free number listed there, or an email, which is service@betterinvesting.org. Or if you'd like to contact me directly, it's SusieA@betterinvesting.org. Ann, are there any final questions?
No, just comments. Right. People have stunned silence with these updates.
I thought you said they were cheering.
But that's another way. You know, they're just speechless. They can't believe it. It's so wonderful.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to give a final shout-out of thank you to our backroom staff, Arlene Skaggs, Bob Houle, Charles Bard, Diana Ment, Joan Loken, and thank you, Ann Cunias. And I'm Susie Artsberger, and good night all, and thank you once again for attending our webinar.